This Fringey Life is brought to you by the Vancouver International Fringe Festival and the Arts Report on CITR 101.9 FM. Find them online at citr.ca. For more info on the Fringe, go to vancouverfringe.com.
This year, the Fringe did something unprecedented. Normally, they hold a lottery where potential Fringe artists vie for a spot in the lineup. No jurying, commissioning, nothing. This year, they took it a step further. For this Fringey Life, I'm Adam Yanush, and we're talking about Onsite. This year, the Fringe went out and helped develop plays, 12 to be exact, to be written and performed outdoors, around interesting landmarks all over Granville Island.
We brought them in on a first-come, first-served basis.
David Jordan from the Fringe talking there.
And then we gave them a mentor, the best we could find, Kendra Fanconi, who's one of the artistic directors of The Only Animal, very renowned site-specific theater troupe. And she taught them the ropes of site-specific theater. So, right from the ground up, how to respond to the things that just happen in your site. So, what are you going to do when the geese land on the duck pond during your show? How are you going to make that part of your show? Because it's going to happen. How to plan what time your show should start based on the tide if you're doing your show under the dock. That type of thing. And so they did workshops every Saturday for 4 months. So that's new for us, and it means that there's all these little shows in nooks and crannies on Granville Island.
Now, the first step for these intrepid on-site artists was to find a location to do their plays.
We actually were all walking around as a group, and I said, "Hey, that looks like a crash-landed space pod," and everyone went, "Ha ha ha," and we kept walking, and my mind went.
That's Seth Solstein, the creator of Lost in Place, located under the big yellow crane near Performance Works.
Yeah, I went around, and I picked a few places that I would have written a play for. One was in a dumpster.
What were some of the others? I'm actually curious. What places did you find?
I think they were actually just various dumpsters, just in different places. And then the crane was the number one. Because of the thing that's behind it, there's...
Please describe that for me.
Yeah. There's a big, I think it's an old weight, like a counterbalance weight for the crane. Okay. But it's been painted these three primary colors, and it looks, it's like ice cream cone shaped. And nice. I thought it looked like a crash-landed space pod. And from there I wrote a play about a crash-landed spaceman.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history, yeah.
Seth was ready to go with his inspiration, but the dumpster wasn't the only other option on Granville Island.
And we knew right away when we heard about doing an on-site show for the Fringe that we wanted our show to be on the water park.
Indu Iyer and Vanessa Bliss saw an arch at the water park and immediately thought about crossing over to another dimension.
Someone said something about this would be a great archway to enter somewhere else and passage through another world, and everyone's like, oh my god, I was thinking just that, and then we had a moment of, oh my god, we're on the same wavelength. Yeah. This is meant to be. So it was kind of like that.
They turned it into a Fringe show called The Other Side.
I think the first time that we really got a sense of the crossing over, it was actually the water park was pretty empty, so we could kind of look at it in a different way because it wasn't full of children and it wasn't full of people. We could kind of use our own imaginations, look and see what we could find. And initially, when we saw this particular arch that kind of prompted this idea of crossing over into another dimension, into another world, initially we thought a lot about the story Narnia and Alice in Wonderland, and we had a lot of thinking about those types of ideas and what we liked about those stories and what we found interesting about those stories, and it all just sort of happened. We were all thinking the same thing at the same time, and it just seemed, because of that, it seemed like it was something that we could work with and stick with and follow through on.
After finding an inspiring location, there comes rehearsal, which has some distinct advantages over a traditional theater space.
Well, it's been fantastic, in part because we have such a great team, Marissa Smith and Claire Hesselgrave along with me. And so it's just the three of us. We come when we want, and as opposed to working in a theater, there's no one else we have to deal with. There's no time restrictions. It's not a space that we're renting out. It's just a space that is in the world. So the main thing we have to deal with are people walking through, or
children playing. Get out of here, kids!
Or people parking their big trailers or something here, because it's also used as a trailer parking. We found out. So, just random interruptions like that are the thing to deal with, but the advantage is so much more. It's also, since it's not a traditional theater space, we also have been working to find ways to engage the audience, and make the show interactive and have the audience move around with the performers a lot more, rather than just kind of sitting in a seat, because there are no seats. So you might as well take advantage of that.
Right, but part of the rehearsal process with Onsite is that whole writing a coherent plot and believable characters part.
It's been pretty daunting. It's been great working with the Fringe, and we felt very supported throughout by the Fringe, through the workshops we've had for Onsite, and them just also emailing us and asking what's going on and just being there to answer our questions. But at the same time, just as young artists creating something, and I think not for all of us, but for most of us, this is our first outside of school show. So it's a huge responsibility, and it's coming from us. So there's such a drive to make it really great and really strong, and to really put all that we have in it in a different way than if it was we're just doing a regular show, as much as we really dedicated to that.
So even though there's a great responsibility to assemble a play from scratch, the sense of ownership and pride is not to be overlooked.
I think it's the first time that any of us have most of us have had this where everything is up to us. I've been involved in a number of different shows, but I've always sort of come in partway through when a lot of things have already been figured out. But this time we've been there from the very beginning. We've written the script. We've decided on costumes. We've decided on lighting. We've decided on audience. We've decided on where people just blocking and all these different things. It's all us, instead of just doing one part, you're an actor, or you're doing props, or you're doing lighting. It's everything. Yeah. So it changes the experience, just because there's so much more that you need to think about at one time.
As well, there's the evolution factor. The show you end up with is seldom going to be exactly what you envisioned at the start.
Well, we were talking at the beginning of rehearsal today that this is our show ended up being kind of like a circus. There's music, there's old-timey slideshows, there's weird special effects, there's giant costumes, there's flashy costumes, there's interactive sing-alongs. You get to be creative and just kind of be a kid and make a show.
You start with just a random location on the island, and soon the creative juices start flowing. The imagination runs wild, and Fringe magic is made. Now, the only step left is getting people to see your show. And thus, the all-important 2-minute, go around in full costume and talk to people in line for other shows pitch. Here's Miranda Allen pitching Willow's Walk.
My show is called Willow's Walk, Ripples in Time. It's about a woman who runs away from her wedding and crashes into a time machine. But cooler than that, it's site-specific, which means it's written based on where it's going to be performed. There's a big, rusty, utilitarian-looking sculpture along the boardwalk. It's called Sculpture Grove. And in my show, that is the time machine. So the show actually happens on and around that piece of art. It's this space that everyone in Vancouver, I don't know Vancouver very well. I didn't know Granville Island, but I found this site, and everyone that I talked to had stories about it. Everyone was so familiar with it. They had a relationship with it, but no one knew what it was or why it was there. So it's this combination of foreign and familiar, and that really appealed to me. And the show is a 20-minute short. It's just 20 minutes, and it has time travel and site specificity, and apparently...
For This Fringy Life, I'm Adam Yanush.